And starting. Hi, everyone. I'm here with Holly Taylor, candidate for the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals, Place 9. A lot of Texans don't hear much about what judicial races do, even though these courts make major decisions that affect people's lives every day. Today, we're going to get to know Holly Taylor, her background, why she's running, what she's hearing across Texas, and why voters should pay attention to this race. No skipping races, Valley. No skipping races. You got to vote down the ballot, please. Welcome, Holly Taylor.
Hey, happy to be here, Fabiola.
Thank you so much for making. Thank you so much for making time. I'm going to get right on it because I know you're super busy. For people hearing your name for the first time, who is Holly Taylor?
Well, I'm a criminal law attorney who's been practicing for over 25 years. But before that, I'm a mom. I raised 4 kids who went up through Texas public schools. My husband gave me this little charm necklace,
Oh,
and there's a charm for each one of our children, and then there's an angel for each of the 4 that I lost. So that is really critical to understanding me as a human being, and a real motivator for everything that I do is to take care of my kids and the future for all of our kids here in Texas.
absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
but in my professional career, I spent over 17 years as a prosecutor. So, most of my career as a prosecutor in Central Texas, prosecuting government corruption, civil rights law, and also violent crime, working to keep my community safe and to stand up for victims and survivors. That's been a critical part of my career. But now I'm trying something new. I am a criminal defense attorney, and I think that has given me some critical perspective. Over the last 5 years, I was working with the Conviction Integrity Unit in Travis County on wrongful conviction cases. And that kind of really opened my eyes to the ways in which our system can fail. I think it's a great system, but I have seen how it can fail. And I think it's critical that we fight to make sure that our justice system stands up for all of us.
For all of us, absolutely. Um, what made you go into law? Going back, if you don't mind me asking, when you were maybe in college or high school growing up, your parents?
Well, I always was kind of somebody who really felt a lot of public. I was so motivated by the arts. In fact, I was an art major in college, and I also was in a band. And so I love music, I love art, but at my core, I really felt like I wanted to help people. I know it sounds corny, and I wanted to do public service,
Mhm.
and that's what brought me to the law as a career. I actually started at the University of Texas, not in the law school, but in the LBJ School of Public Affairs. And then I added the law school because you can do a joint degree there where you get a law degree and a master's. So I have a master's in public policy. And that is really critical to me because the practice of law is really at its core about public policy in my mind.
Holly Taylor, you sound really prepared. Uh, but are you prepared to talk about your background in music, Holly? What role has music played in your life outside of the courtroom?
So I don't really perform music anymore, but my kids have. All of my kids were involved in music in school, and one of my kids is currently in a band here in the Austin area. And my husband and I are super passionate about supporting our local musical artists, and we're involved in a charity called Sonic Guild here in Austin that supports our local artists because this world is very tough on artists and musicians. It makes it really difficult for them to make money these days. It's very hard for them to afford to live in any of the major urban centers here in Texas because the cost of living is so high, but particularly in the Austin area. And you may have heard that Austin is known as the live music capital of the world, but it's hard for musicians to live here in Austin these days. So, one of our goals is to try to support those musicians who want to follow their hearts and to
Right.
express themselves through music. And so for me, that's a big part of who I am. But also, I love to just listen to music because it really brings me back to what matters.
Talking about music, I love music too, all kinds of music. And recently, because I have time, I've been traveling and I go to Green, Texas, the Green Hall, and I've been hearing artists taking up Spanish music, particularly Selena. And I was wondering, Holly Taylor, this is South Texas. This is a South Texas question. Selena is such a huge part of the culture here. Would you be willing to sing just a few notes of Como la Flor for us, if you know the words?
Well, I'll tell you what, I fear that I will butcher this, Fabiola. So you can't hold it against me.
Como la Flor. Hey, I did it.
But I'll tell you, I won this little golden mic, not for having musical ability, but for supporting young Democrats.
There we go.
I saw it here on my desk. I thought, aha!
All right. Okay, that counts. That counts. All right, but back to business, really more serious. A lot of people hear Court of Criminal Appeals and immediately tune out because it sounds complicated. Like, I didn't know
Sure.
anything. I started doing this organizing and interviewing because nobody else was doing it. Nobody was educating me. I don't remember anything from high school, even college. So, in simple terms, what does this court actually do, and why should everyday Texans care about who sits on it?
Well, this court is critical to ensuring that we still have constitutional rights here in Texas, to put it very succinctly. This is what the court does. They are constantly looking at critical issues that implicate our constitutional rights. Things like our First Amendment right to free speech, things like our Fourth Amendment rights. Who can track you using your phone?
Mm.
When can agents force their way into your home or your car? These kinds of issues are issues that this court is considering on a regular basis. And when they make a decision, because they're the highest court in Texas for criminal cases, they set a precedent, they make a rule. All the other courts in Texas have to follow it. And there's only one other court in the nation that can override them, and that's only on federal
Mhm,
constitutional issues, and that's the
mhm.
US Supreme Court.
Right.
When it comes to our state constitution, which can also protect our rights, this court and the Texas Supreme Court, because we have two high courts here in
Right.
Texas,
A lot of people
they,
did not know
right,
that.
sorry. Anyway, they have the last word. So they're essentially making law that all the other courts and law enforcement and lawyers across the state are going to have to follow
Mhm.
those rules that they set. So that's why it's important. So even if we personally don't feel like we're going to be involved in a criminal
Right.
case, it doesn't matter because this court is making critical rules that everyone has to follow, including law enforcement, that can impact all of us and the people we love.
So that from that perspective, it trickles down. The decisions made there trickle down to us on a daily basis, and we don't even know it. Correct?
Yes, absolutely. We don't even know it. But the other thing is, one of the things that really motivates me in this race, and the whole reason that I decided to do it in the first place, is the problem of wrongful convictions. One of the things that absolutely transformed me as a lawyer and also just as a human being
Right.
was after being a prosecutor for so long, beginning to do this investigative work on wrongful conviction claims, where we were doing things like DNA testing and scientific review on these older cases where organizations like the Innocence Project brought them to our attention and asked us
Mhm.
to look. Coming into this work, having been a prosecutor for so long, I have to tell you, I really didn't think we were going to have wrongful convictions, although I knew the work was important and we needed to do it.
Right.
I was so wrong. I was so wrong. We did, and what hit me particularly hard is that some of those cases were cases where I had worked on them as a prosecutor. I helped put these people behind bars, only to find out years later that they were innocent and we'd made a terrible mistake. And it was devastating. And then I worked with our team to fight to exonerate them, to free them, and they have been freed. Those people have. But working with the Innocence Project opened my eyes to the fact that these are not isolated cases. You
Right.
know, the system is good, but it's not flawless. It does make mistakes. And this court, the Court of Criminal Appeals, this court is the ultimate fact finder in these cases. So they make the decisions on who is going to be freed and who is going to stay in prison. And it's really critical to me personally, because of my personal experience, that those decisions are the right ones and that we do our best to ensure that we have no more innocent people behind bars for crimes they didn't commit.
Wow, that is powerful. That is powerful. Is there a particular case that you were involved that you wanted to tell us about?
Sure. Well, one of the cases really particularly hit me hard because she was a mom, just like me, and she had 4 children, like I do.
Mhm.
And but the case came to us as a child abuse case. A baby had died due to scalding, and we were certain 23 years ago that because of a doctor's testimony that there's only one way this could have happened, that basically it had to be intentional, it had to be child abuse. We prosecuted it as child abuse. And this young woman was given a very large sentence. And honestly, her kids grew up without her.
Mhm.
And what happened is we discovered later that was essentially junk science.
Mm.
What occurred at the time was based on bad information, and subsequently we figured out that in fact the pattern of injuries that this poor baby suffered, in fact, were quite common with accidental uh,
Mhm.
scaldings. And in fact, one of the now adult children of this defendant later said, "No, it was me. As a child, wanting to bathe the baby, the water was set way too hot in this home, and the baby was scalded. And it wasn't intentional. It was a tragic accident." And it was just heartbreaking
Mhm.
because these kids grew up without their mom because of decisions that we made based on the information that we had at the time. But it really brings home how critical science is and getting accurate current science in these.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
even after the fact, being willing to listen to people who come forward and say, let's just look at this again. Let's just look at the science. And that case was compelling to me because of the particular circumstances of this young woman. But there were other cases
Mhm.
where we went after someone that was not the right person, and the person who actually committed a horrible crime was allowed to walk free
Mhm.
because we pursued the wrong person. And at least one of the cases that I worked on involved with the yogurt shop murders in the Austin area. Anybody from Central Texas probably remembers those
I
cases.
remember being in the couch with my roommates at UT. We had 5 roommates at the time. I remember.
So in that case, it turns out we found out years later that those terrible murders were actually committed by a Florida serial killer who was traveling through Austin at the time and not the people who were accused of the crime. And because we ended up pursuing the wrong people, the person who actually committed the crime, a very, very dangerous man,
Mhm.
walked free, and
Mhm.
he killed and raped other women
Right.
because we pursued the wrong people. And whether or not that could have been done differently, it's a complicated question. But I think that it's really critical that we study these cases to try to avoid this, because it is a double injustice. Not
Right.
only do you have the unspeakable injustice of an innocent person sitting behind bars for a crime they didn't commit, in some cases, like this one, you have someone who's truly dangerous and guilty who then goes free and
Right.
commits other crimes and harms others. So it that is why it's so critical that the system address this problem, and this court sits at the top of that system.
Real quick, do the judges there now, are they willing to open up the cases again and review them again? How willing are they?
So they do take a look at the cases, but I think the review could be more thorough. There are some cases in which the court has granted relief, and what that means is that they took a hard look at a case and they understood that someone was truly innocent, or they took a hard look and they evaluated it and decided they thought they were not. But I have worked on at least one case where I felt the court did not give it a fair review.
Mhm.
And that was a person who was sitting on death row. And I, it is extremely concerning to me, especially when someone is facing the ultimate penalty for their crime, that they receive procedural due process safeguards and that the court give it the most careful review possible. Because once that sentence is executed, there is no going back. And in that case, we had serious problems that we discovered after the fact with the DNA that connected the defendant with a crime
Mhm.
that was a stranger on stranger crime to begin with.
Mhm.
So the DNA had been absolutely critical at trial. And I was frankly concerned about the analysis that the
Right.
court did in that case.
Uh-huh.
So I think that I will just say, I think there's room for improvement.
There we go. Well, I hope everybody hears this and pays attention. Does not skip ballots. Holly Taylor, Holly Taylor, Holly Taylor. She's going to be on your ballot this November. Because we see a lot of people in Texas who skip judicial races. And I'm guilty of it. I don't know who this person is. And I don't know what the court does. And we
Mhm.
need that education. And again, this is why I love doing these interviews, because we find out so many things that otherwise we wouldn't come across. So pay attention, everybody. Let me move on. Campaign trail. You've been campaigning across Texas. Where
Mhm.
have you been, and what are people telling you? What are you hearing? What concerns do you hear most?
Well, some of the concerns don't directly impact the court that I'm running for, but I hear a lot of them. One of those has to do with water, and I know that is a big issue down in South Texas.
Mhm.
And I hear that not just in South Texas, I hear it in North Texas too. Many people are concerned about levels of drought. Many people are concerned about water contamination. And I know that in some areas of South Texas, people tell me we can't drink.
Mhm.
We haven't been able to for years. That's really concerning. And I
Is
also,
so that's not related to criminal? Would that, is there any
well,
connection?
that's a fair question. So one of the things that I did as a prosecutor was prosecute environmental crimes. So I'm not saying there's any connection specifically here.
Mhm.
But I think that it's really important that we have judges on our courts who understand that environmental crimes do occur,
Mhm.
and that we have provisions in our water code, in other parts of our laws here in Texas that are meant to protect our environment. And that's all I'll say about that. Is it's critical to have judges on the courts who understand that.
Right.
Um, and I not only understand it, I've done this work. So I'll just say that.
Thank you.
Thing that people do express concern to me about is corruption. I hear a lot about people are concerned about corruption at different levels of power,
Mhm.
of power within our society, within our governments.
Mhm.
And I hear this a lot from all over the state, not just from big cities, but from small towns as well, and in all parts of the state. I'm aware that people are very concerned about that. I think that it is something that is a real issue right now in our world. And again, as a judicial candidate, I can't talk to people about individual cases that they're facing, but it's critical that we have judges on our courts who understand what corruption looks like and who have experience in that area. And that is also something that I've done. I have prosecuted government corruption in my work as a prosecutor, and I understand that it is real, that it can occur, and that we need to take it seriously. So that is something. And the other thing that they do talk to me about as well has to do with resources and training for local law enforcement. That's something I didn't expect to hear from people, but
Yeah,
people talk.
not in Texas.
Yeah, they talk to me about that a lot. I feel like our local law enforcement
Mm.
don't have adequate resources and that they don't have adequate training. Although that doesn't impact the cases necessarily that the Court of Criminal Appeals considers, it is a court that administers grant funds that can be used for training. So it is relevant to the court's work. And it's really interesting to hear that from people, particularly in rural areas and small towns, that they feel like it's difficult for them to attract law enforcement to their areas because of the pay levels, I think,
Mhm.
and that they're concerned about resources and training because they have real crime in these areas. It's not just in the big cities, and it's really critical that law enforcement know how to prosecute the kinds of crime that they have and that they have the resources to keep those communities safe, just like we have resources. We need resources in our urban areas as well.
Very interesting. And I have heard locally here in the Rio Grande Valley how school police departments and city and rural police departments, they rely a lot on Department of Public Safety to help them out because
Mhm.
as state police, they seem to have a lot unlimited resources. I'm not sure about that, but they do have a lot of resources, more so than any other place in the country. But anyway, I think that's a topic for another conversation.
Mhm.
Holly Taylor, um, what makes Holly Taylor the right choice then?
I think the conversation that we just had about the experience that I've had, not only prosecuting criminals and working to keep my community safe, but then discovering the ways in which I made mistakes, the system made mistakes, and understanding what it takes, what it is going to be in terms of a commitment to standing up for the Constitution, for the rule of law, and ensuring that our system is truly defending the rights of all Texans and moving forward on this court. I think it's important that we have judges that understand how the system can fail and have the passion to ensure that that never happens again.
Very powerful. Thank you so much, Holly Taylor. Thank you for joining me today. Judicial racists may not always get the attention they deserve, but they matter. And you are proving that to us, to everybody listening, Holly Taylor. And hopefully, this conversation helped people get to know you, Holly Taylor, both as a candidate and as a person. Be sure to learn about your ballot before Election Day, everybody. Holly Taylor is running the November ballot. Um, Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day and good luck on the campaign trail.
Thank you.
Happy
This
travel.
was
Thank you. I'm going to end.